Behind the gleaming glass walls reflecting the Chicago sun, there's a truth never displayed in recruiting brochures or company LinkedIn profiles. It lives in whispers, suspicious glances, and contract signed in silence. And that day, a data analyst named Monica Harris began to realize that her path to success wasn't just paved with numbers and graphs, but also with career and even life killing pitfalls. Bright Path Consulting wasn't just an office. For its thousands of employees, it was a status symbol. From the white marble lobby with its black-dressed receptionists to the open workspace with its expansive glass walls overlooking Lake Michigan, every corner of the building was designed to project an image, modern, progressive, and untouchable. But Monica knew all too well. The taller the building, the deeper the shadow it cast. As a senior data analyst, Monica sat in a cubicle near the window. The dual-screen computer, colorful sticky notes, and intricate graphs cluttering her desk gave her the impression of a hard worker. But what truly defined her day wasn't the numbers, but the interactions with the people around her. Across the table from her sat Jessica Turner, 26 white, who had joined the team a year ago. Jessica was full of energy, often bringing coffee for the team, and had a habit of telling long stories about her weekends. Monica was often a patient listener, sometimes chuckling when Jessica joked. Their relationship was like that of a sister. Monica taught, Jessica admired. On the other side of the room was Tanya Williams, 38, black, who worked in a different division but often shared projects with Monica. Tanya was known for her warmth and ability to inject humor into her busy schedule. Every lunchtime, they often sat together, sharing stories about Tanya's children or new recipes Monica had tried at her apartment. Then there was Marcus Johnson, 50, black, not a teammate, but a mentor. Marcus often came to Monica's desk just to ask, "How's my superstar doing today?" His voice was deep, his gaze calm. Marcus was one of the people who gave Monica the courage to keep going in a world that wasn't always welcoming to Black women. It was these small relationships that kept Monica feeling grounded. He felt he had a safe circle, albeit a small one, amidst the sea of office politics. But all that comfort was disrupted after an internal networking event. David Langston, the VP everyone knew, began appearing frequently around Monica. He had a reason, a meeting, a project discussion, or even just happening to pass by her desk. At first, Monica's coworkers didn't pay much attention. They simply saw David as a friendly boss. But Monica sensed something different, a lingering stare, a comment that crossed professional boundaries. One morning, Jessica, sitting across from her, muttered, "Why does Mr. Langston stop by here so often? Like, too often?" Monica just smiled dryly, trying to deflect it. She didn't want to set the alarm too early. As time went on, the atmosphere on the office floor became more subtle. Monica began to notice that some of her female colleagues, especially the younger ones, often avoided face-to-face contact with David. Some pretended to be busy, others deliberately left the room when he arrived. Tanya once whispered, as they lined up for coffee in the pantry, "I didn't like the way he spoke to me yesterday. Like, there was something wrong." Monica just nodded. She knew what Tanya meant, but chose not to elaborate. At Bright Path, there was an unspoken rule. Don't fight anyone who brings money into the company. And David was one of them. Every night, Monica returned to her small apartment in Bronzeville with mixed feelings. From the outside, it looked modest, red brick walls, large windows overlooking the street. Inside, data analysis books mingled with family photos, a sign that Monica always tried to balance her professional and personal lives. But since the incident with David, she had trouble sleeping. She stared anxiously at her phone every time a notification came in, afraid it would be from David again. She began jotting down every little incident in a black notebook, messages, comments, touches. not because she planned to fight back, but because her instincts told her, someday these notes will be important. Days passed, and the harassment didn't stop. In fact, it grew bolder. One afternoon, after a meeting was over and the room was starting to empty, David leaned toward Monica and said, half-jokingly, "You know, if you play on the right team, you could become a director sooner than you think." Monica smiled stiffly, but inside, she felt suffocated. She walked home that night with heavy steps, entered her apartment and sat on a chair by the window. The city lights twinkled outside, but her mind was dark. She grabbed her laptop and typed into a search engine, "Chicago Workplace Harassment Reporting Process." Her eyes burned. Tears finally fell. She didn't want to be a silent victim, but she also knew, once she reported, there was no going back. The next morning, Monica arrived at the office early. The floor was still quiet, save for the hum of the coffee machine. She sat at her desk, opened her laptop, and stared at the blank screen. Her hands trembled as she began typing. Subject: formal complaint, workplace harassment. Dear HR, I am writing to formally report incidents of harassment I have experienced from Vice President David Langston. Every word felt heavy. Every letter felt like it could tear down the walls of her career, but she kept typing. When she finally hit send, Monica leaned back in her chair, closing her eyes. She had no idea what would happen next. All she knew was one thing. She had just lit a fire that many people had been trying to extinguish. And in a few days, HR would call her. That morning, sunlight poured through the large glass windows of the 32nd floor, reflecting glistening off the neat desks. From outside, it looked like a normal day. Chicago traffic was still heavy, the occasional honking of car horns could be heard faintly, and the aroma of coffee from the pantry filled the room. But for Monica Harris, that morning was different. An email with a short subject line had been waiting for her since the night before. From HR Department. Subject: meeting request, confidential. Her chest immediately tightened. Confidential at BrightPath wasn't a light word. It meant something sensitive, something no one should know. She knew exactly why she'd been called. The report was in, and the wheels were turning. With cold hands, Monica closed her laptop and stood. Several colleagues glanced over. Jessica asked, "Hey, where are you going? A meeting, huh?" Monica simply nodded curtly, tried to smile, and then walked toward the HR room. The HR room at BrightPath wasn't like a typical office HR room. Tucked away in a quiet corner of the building, its walls were adorned with dark wood paneling, gray sofas, and abstract paintings. Everything gave it a serene feel, even too serene. At the far end of the room sat Rachel Meyer, the head of HR. Her black blazer was crisp, thin glasses perched on her nose, and her face wore a tight smile, a smile that never quite reached her eyes. "Monica, please have a seat," she said in a soft but cold voice. Monica sat down slowly, trying to maintain an upright posture. Her hands rested in her lap to prevent her trembling. Rachel opened the brown leather folder. "So, I received your email." She looked at Monica, her smile unchanged. "I want you to know we take these things very seriously." There was a pause. Silence. The sound of the air conditioner was clear, piercing the silence. Monica took a breath. I felt uncomfortable with some interactions. It wasn't professional." Rachel nodded slowly, writing something down. "I see. And this was with Mr. Langston." Monica swallowed, then nodded. "Yes." Rachel closed the folder, leaning back. The faint smile remained on her face, but her eyes were sharp. "Monica, you are a valued employee. BrightPath doesn't want talented people like you to feel unsafe. But you also have to understand, Mr. Langston is a very important figure here. Allegations like this, well, they could destroy reputations, careers, not just his, but also yours." Monica fell silent. The words were like poison coated in honey. She tried to catch her breath, but her body tensed. Rachel then opened a desk drawer and pulled out a document. Here at BrightPath, we have ways to handle these situations internally. It's smoother, cleaner, and less damaging for everyone involved. This is a non-disclosure agreement. You sign it, you get a compensation package, and we make sure this never affects your career path. Rachel pushed the document toward her. White paper, bold letters at the top. Confidential, settlement, and NDA. Monica stared at it for a long moment. Her heart was pounding.
So, you want me to stay quiet? Rachel, smiling coldly, I want you to move forward. Focus on your work, your growth. Don't let one misunderstanding ruin everything. The word misunderstanding stung Monica's ears. Everything she had experienced was suddenly trivialized, twisted into a mere misunderstanding. In her head, two voices battled. One voice said, sign it, take the money, save your career. The other voice whispered, if you stay quiet, he'll do it again. Not just to you, but to someone else. Monica clenched her hands in her lap. Rachel stared at her, as if waiting. Time seemed to stand still. Outside, the sun was still shining. Chicago's tall buildings remained steadfast, but in the room, the air seemed to thicken. The wooden table, the dim lights, and Rachel's unblinking gaze made Monica feel cornered. Finally, Monica nodded slowly. I need some time to think. Rachel smiled wider, as if she had just won something. Of course, take your time, but I would suggest not waiting too long. These things, they get complicated if dragged out. Monica walked out with heavy steps, her hand still clutching the folder containing the NDA. The office hallway felt longer than usual. Every face of her coworker who greeted her felt distant, blurry. As she returned to her desk, Jessica turned around. Everything okay? She asked cheerfully. Monica forced a smile. Yeah, just a meeting. But deep down she knew it wasn't just a meeting. It was the starting point of a battle bigger than she could have imagined. The days after the HR meeting felt different for Monica. The usually vibrant BrightPath office now felt filled with whispers. It was like a thin, invisible fog shrouded every desk, every glance, every brief conversation in the pantry. People began to stop talking when Monica passed. They smiled, but their smiles were thin and awkward. Some pretended to be busy with their laptops, others looked down. Gossip, she knew, had already begun to circulate. Jessica, her closest friend on the team, tried to maintain normalcy. Hey, lunch together? She asked cheerfully. But Monica could sense a nervous tinge in her voice. Even Jessica, usually talkative, often stopped mid-sentence, as if there were things she shouldn't say. One afternoon, Monica went into the pantry to get some water. She overheard two colleagues, Tanya and a junior analyst, whispering. I heard he was called in by HR last week. Yeah, it had something to do with Mr. Langston, right? Hush, not so loud. The cameras could come on at any moment. As soon as Monica opened the door, the conversation was cut off. They smiled awkwardly. Monica, coffee? She asked, pretending to be busy stirring the sugar. Monica simply nodded, grabbed her water bottle, and left. The tightness in her chest grew stronger. She knew the gossip had reached many ears. Under the pressure, Monica began to make a bold decision. If HR tried to cover it up, if David was still free to walk the office floor with an arrogant smile, then the only way was to gather evidence herself. She started saving emails, archiving Slack conversations containing derogatory comments, even saving screenshots of Zoom meetings where David made sexist jokes. She put it all in a secret folder on a small flash drive she always took home. Jessica asked one night, "Why are you still coming home late even though the project is finished?" Monica just smiled faintly. "There are things I need to tidy up." One night, when most of the employees had gone home, Monica sat at her desk with the office lights half off. Only the sound of the air conditioner and the printer accompanied her. On her laptop screen, she opened an old document David had sent her, meeting notes full of personal comments about female employees.
Monica's hands trembled, but her eyes were sharp. If I stop now, this is all for nothing. I have to keep going. In the distance, she heard the elevator opening. Heavy steps. David. He stood in the hallway, talking to someone on the phone, his voice arrogant. Don't worry, HR's got it under control. She'll sign the damn paper. She immediately closed her laptop, her heart nearly leaping out of her chest. She looked down, pretending to be busy. But those words were enough. She knew David trusted the system to protect him.
A few days later, Rachel called Monica again. This time her tone was colder. Have you made a decision? Monica tried to calm herself. I need more time. Rachel placed her glasses on the table. Monica, dragging this out won't help you. You're starting to get noticed. People are talking. Do you want that reputation? The word reputation slid across her lips like a subtle threat. Monica bit her lip. HR had never really been there for her. They existed to protect the company and David. As time went on, Monica felt the burden growing heavier. Once friendly coworkers were now distancing themselves. Projects began to be reassigned without explanation. Monica's name was rarely mentioned in team meetings. It was as if she was slowly being erased from the map. She wrote in her notebook one night, "If I give in, I'm safe but alone. If I fight, I might be destroyed, but I might not be the only one." Amidst all this, one person who gave Monica strength was Marcus, a senior analyst known for his composure. He approached her at lunch. "Monica, I don't know what's going on, but I just want you to know, if you ever need someone to listen, I'm here." Monica looked at him almost in tears. "Thanks, I might take you up on that." Marcus didn't press with questions. He was simply present, and that was enough to give Monica some breathing room. Meanwhile, David was growing more confident. He joked around in meetings as if nothing was wrong. One time, he even passed Monica's desk and said, barely a whisper, "You know, people who play with fire often get burned." Monica gritted her teeth, holding back her reaction, but inside, anger simmered. One afternoon, just as Monica was about to give up, an anonymous message arrived in her inbox. "I know what you're going through. You're not the first. Meet me at the cafe on 5th Avenue, 7 p.m. Monica was skeptical, but curiosity was stronger. That night she left. In the corner of the cafe, she saw a woman in her 30s, nervous, her eyes tired. Her name was Alina, a former Bright Path employee. "I used to be called by HR too. They gave me an NDA. I signed it, but he still did the same thing to other people." Monica felt the world stop. Tears threatened to fall. I'm not alone. Through Elena, Monica was introduced to 2 other victims. They met quietly in a small apartment, the curtains drawn, only the light of a desk lamp on. They shared their stories, their pain, and their fears. "I lost my job because I refused to sign. I was ostracized. I still have nightmares about it to this day." Monica listened, then said in a trembling but firm voice, "We have to do something. If I'm alone, they can silence me. But if we all speak, they can't hide anymore." That night, they made a decision: gather evidence together, strategize, and fight back. Monica felt, for the first time, a weight lift off her shoulders. She was no longer alone against a giant system. The next day, Monica returned to the office with a different stride. The fear remained, but now there was a new fire in her eyes. She stared down the long hallway toward the HR desk, and she thought to herself, "The game has changed. You can't silence us all, David." The news broke not like an explosion, but like a small crack that spread rapidly. Someone, somehow, had leaked that several former Bright Path employees were preparing a class action lawsuit. Monica Harris's name was mentioned as a key witness. On the 32nd floor of the Bright Path office, the atmosphere had changed drastically. Normally vibrant, it was now filled with panicked whispers, suspicious stares, and fear. Printers hummed incessantly as HR was busy printing documents. Phones rang, and company lawyers came and went with tense faces. Jessica approached Monica in the pantry, her face pale. "Mon, is it true? About the lawsuit?" Monica stared at her friend for a long moment, then said softly, "It's bigger than me now." Jessica held her hand for a moment, then said, "Then I'm proud of you." Rachel Carter sat in the meeting room with the HR team, her face pale. Stacks of NDAs littered the table. "We can't let this get out of hand," she said firmly. "If all the former employees unite, we're finished." A young HR staffer dared to speak up. "But the evidence they have, emails, meeting notes, we can't just sweep this under the rug anymore." Rachel took a deep breath and looked up at the large windows overlooking the Chicago skyline. For the first time, it dawned on her that their game might be over. 2 weeks later, court-appointed external investigators began entering the office. They were dressed formally, carrying black briefcases, and walking with a stiff, serious demeanor. Monica was called into a conference room. There, 2 investigators sat waiting for her, a recorder on the table. "Miss Harris, thank you for coming. We need your full statement." Monica sat up straight, her hands shaking slightly, but her eyes steady. She began her story, from the beginning. The night of the company party, David's comments, the HR call, the NDA, and the veiled threats. Outside the room, David stood with his jaw clenched, staring through the frosted glass. For the first time, his smile faded. That day, Bright Path felt like a battlefield without weapons. Investigators confiscated laptops, accessed the email server, and requested interviews with dozens of employees. Several of Monica's colleagues ducked as they passed through the hallway, afraid to be dragged along. Marcus approached Monica in the pantry. "You're very brave," he said quietly. "A lot of people want to do this, but they can't." Monica smiled faintly. "I'm scared too, but I'm more scared of staying silent." David was called into the investigation room. He arrived in his best suit, a thin smile on his face, trying to project control. "Mr. Langston," the investigator said, "we found a consistent pattern in the testimonies of several former female employees. They mention your name, your comments, and the NDAs they signed under pressure from HR." David gave a short, sarcastic laugh. "It's all just hurt employee gossip. This company knows my worth." But when the investigator showed him a copy of the derogatory email from his account, his face paled.
Rachel wasn't spared either. She was called in and questioned. "Why did you give the harassment complainant an NDA instead of investigating the case?" Rachel tried to maintain her composure, but sweat dripped from her forehead. I was just following orders from my superiors. It was for the company's reputation." The investigator glared at her. "You know that's obstruction of justice, right?" Rachel lowered her head. Her voice trembled. Everything she had been protecting was destroying her. 6 months later, the Harris versus Bright Path Corporation case officially opened in Chicago Federal Court. The white marble building stood majestically. News cameras lined the front door. Inside, Monica sat in the witness box. The room was packed with people: jurors, lawyers, reporters, former employees who had joined the class action, even Jessica and Marcus who had come to support her. Monica spoke in a trembling but clear voice. "I was told to stay silent, to sign papers, to bury what happened. But I couldn't, because I knew if I did, it would happen again, to someone else." The room fell silent. Only the sound of the jury's pens clattered rapidly. The plaintiff's attorney presented evidence: emails, meeting recordings, testimonies from dozens of other victims. Slowly, the tightly closed puzzle began to unravel before the public. David tried to smile, but his hands fidgeted. Rachel sat on the witness stand, her eyes puffy, occasionally wiping away tears. After weeks of trial, the judge banged the gavel. The court finds BrightPath Corporation guilty of inaction and cover-up of harassment, $50 million in damages awarded to plaintiffs in the class action lawsuit. The courtroom roared. Several victims hugged each other. Monica covered her face with her hands, tears streaming down her face, not because she lost, but because finally the truth had triumphed. BrightPath lost many investors. Their reputation was tarnished. David was dishonorably discharged, his face adorning the front pages of newspapers as a symbol of fallen arrogance. Rachel resigned, her life shattered by her decision to turn a blind eye. Monica, though exhausted, found peace. She did not return to BrightPath. Instead, she accepted an offer from a nonprofit organization focused on workplace justice. One afternoon, in the same cafe where she had first met Elena, Monica sat with Jessica and Marcus. Jessica smiled. "You changed everything, Mon." Marcus nodded slowly. "Sometimes one person's courage is enough to light a fire for many." Monica stared out the window, watching the sunset reflect off the glass of Chicago's high-rise buildings. She said softly, "I just don't want anyone to feel alone like I did." This story isn't just about Monica or David or BrightPath. It's about silenced voices, about the courage to speak out even when the world tries to turn a blind eye. And amidst the hustle and bustle of the big city, one thing is certain. The truth may be delayed, but it always finds a way out. HR tried to cover it up. David felt immune, but one small voice that refused to be silenced broke through the wall of silence. And from there, justice was born, albeit at a high price.